There is one book in the whole history of mankind that has answers to every question you could ever ask about the origin of the universe. And because of those answers, this book was banned and then was lost for more than 2,000 years. The Book of Enoch remains one of the most controversial books in the whole of mankind. It makes books like The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka or The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie look like child play. We first learn of Enoch in Genesis 5, and all we know is that he pleased God so much that he didn't die. He was given an all-expense paid trip to heaven, but this single act left us with more questions than answers. Who was this man who was so righteous that God had to keep death away from him? A special, mysterious character that no one really knew about. Church fathers from the 2nd and 3rd centuries, such as Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, Origen, and Clement of Alexandria, all mentioned the Book of Enoch. The Epistle of Barnabas from the early 2nd century made use of the Book of Enoch a lot. The ancient Roman philosopher Tertullian even called the Book of Enoch Holy Scripture. For the first 300 years after Christ, a lot of people knew about and read the Book of Enoch. It was as popular as reading the Harry Potter series up until the Council of Laodicea deemed it wrong and controversial. As a result, the Book of Enoch lost its credibility and was banned, which is still in effect today. Your Bible doesn't have the Book of Enoch. That's how effective the ban was. With the ban, the public stopped using the book, and slowly, the book got lost in the seas of time, and was hardly spoken of until the 1400s.
All things in all universes move according to law, and the law which regulates the movement of the planets is no more immutable than the law which regulates the material expressions of man. One of the greatest of all cosmic laws is that which is responsible for the formation of man as a material being. The great aim of the mystery schools of all ages has been to reveal the workings of which law will connect man, the material, and man, the spiritual. The connecting link between the material man and the spiritual man is the intellectual man, for the mind partakes of both the material and immaterial qualities. The aspirant for higher knowledge must develop the intellectual side of us, of his nature, and so strengthen his will that it will be able to concentrate all powers of his being on and in the plane he desires. This is how you create your reality. The great search for light, life, and love only begins on the material plane. Carried to its ultimate and final goal is complete oneness with the universal consciousness. The foundation is in this material is the first step. Then becomes the higher goal of spiritual attainment. In the following pages, I will give the interpretation of the Emerald Tablets and their secret and the hidden esoteric messages. Concealed in the words of Thoth are many meanings that do not appear on the surface. Light of knowledge brought to bear upon the tablets will open many new fields of thought. Read and be wise, but only the light of your own consciousness awakens a deep-seated understanding which is the inherent quality of the soul. That's directly from my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. So now we're going to get into this, guys. Let's talk a little bit about the universe runs on natural law. So the general principles of natural law, we're talking about 7 principles that we're going to touch on over here today. Make sure I'm going on time here. Okay, we're good. The first principle is the principle of mentalism. And this is where it's first because it's one of the most important ones in my personal opinion. And this is where a lot of people fall short in understanding or figuring out how to create their own reality and how things happen and how things manifest and how the future unfolds and why they're in situations that they're in. We're going to cover the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, rhythm, the cause and effect, which is one of my favorite as well, and then the principle of gender. Very powerful quote here from the Cavalier. The principles of truth are 7. He who knows these understandingly possesses the magic key, before whose touch all the doors of the temple will fly open. Where's the temple? This is your temple, guys. Not a building out here in the street, not this place you go to with a gigantic image on top of it that you think represents something that happened in the past. The temple is right here, right between your eyes. This is your temple. This is what this is referencing. It's not referencing a physical building where you go and put money in a plate. It's referencing where you put knowledge into your brain.
An interest in the Book of Enoch resurrected around the time of the Protestant Reformation. Somewhere, by the late 1400s, whispers started to spread that the long-lost Book of Enoch might still exist. But also, Some people banked on people's hunger for the truth and released forgeries of many books that said they were the long-lost Book of Enoch, until a Scottish explorer by the name of James Bruce found the original Book of Enoch in Ethiopia. He found the old manuscript in the holy collection of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Luckily, the church preserved this text despite it not being part of the canon of the Bible. The text James Bruce found is written in Ge'ez, which is an old Semitic language that the people of Ethiopia speak. It is believed to have been written between the 3rd and the 1st centuries BC.
So we designed something with Googles of entities so that they can experience life subjectively in the 3rd dimension. And in the Emerald Tablets, Thoth talks about the fact that some of these energetic beings from the collective consciousness decided to create avatar bodies to go experience life, what it would be like in the 3rd dimension, to walk around, smell the flowers, live in this particular realm and understand it better. Why? Because consciousness always wants to send back information to the source. It's as above, so below. How does your brain work? Your brain is encased in complete darkness. It doesn't know anything going on outside of your head at all. It knows nothing. Your brain knows nothing. But what it does have, it has friends. Sight, hearing, seeing, smell, touch, all your senses. So the brain says to your sensory friends, his sensory friends, it says, hey guys, I don't know what's going on out there. Go out there and collect me some information. So the friends go, okay, we got you. So the friends go out. They start collecting information, but they don't know what themselves what they're collecting. They're just collecting literal zeros and ones, bits of data. They don't know what they've collected, but they collect this information and they bring it back to the brain, which is encased in complete darkness. The brain, as a way of figuring it all out, understands what the information is, and then the brain says, okay, great. Now I'm going to project a hologram as to what's going on outside, and then you navigate through that hologram through a projection from your mind. That's all it is. And so consciousness is the same exact thing. The collective consciousness is this giant consciousness energy source, somewhere probably outside of this dimension, that has sent itself in here and split itself into pieces to collect information and to learn what it's like to be a 3rd dimensional entity of being. And it's now takes all that information that you lived your entire life, transmitting that information directly back to source. And it's collecting it as above, so below. It will not change. So let's talk a little bit about the laws. Put this up here a little bit.
The text James found consists of 5 parts, and each shows a different aspect of Enoch's life, such as his encounters with the Watchers, his trips to heaven, and the end-of-the-world visions he had. James Bruce came back with 3 copies of the Lost Book of Enoch, originally written in Ethiopian. Richard Lawrence wrote and released the first English translation in 1821. Then, in 1912, we saw the release of the famous R.H. Charles version. 28 years later, other versions of the book were found in a cave, popularly known as Cave 4, and with it came more stories.
In the creation myth, we are introduced to astrology and the influence of the planets upon man, from which man is expected to rise above. We have dualism, a God of the heavens and one who created earth. We have the idea of man as a son or part of God. We have man being given the power of creation, where you create your own reality. The idea that man has a dual nature is one in heaven, non-material, and the soul spirit, which is one physical in the world of matter, the body, which we talked about just a minute ago, the avatar, and the fall of leaving heaven to be with nature. This is one of the biggest mysteries that have gone on with information that was copied into the modern day religious books about fallen angels. It has nothing to do with Anunnakis, and it has nothing to do with these evil spirits that decided to turn against God and all this. It has to do with the collective consciousness deciding at one point that it would, before any entities existed, that it would divide itself into multi-Googles of entities. Google is the number, it's not just the name, it's not the number, it's way bigger than trillion. And I believe there are Googles of entities inside this universe.
The Book of Enoch might have been the first written account by humans, and could also have been the inspiration for the Book of Genesis, and even the Bible, both the New and Old Testaments. That is how old it is. Some apostles of the Bible have been said to quote Enoch when preaching. The one famous direct quote in the New Testament is by Jude. Jude chapter 1 verses 14 to 15 quoting Enoch chapter 1, verses 9. In the seventh generation from Adam, Enoch also prophesied these things, saying, "Behold, the Lord came with his holy myriads to execute judgment on all, and to convict all the ungodly of all their ungodly deeds, which they have committed in such an ungodly way, and of all the harsh things which ungodly sinners spoke against him." So that means the author Jude knew Enoch and respected the verse enough to quote it. Another comparison is between Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 and 1 Enoch 6 verses 1. "And it came about that humanity began to multiply upon the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them. And the angels saw that the daughters of humanity were good to behold, and they took for themselves women from whomever they chose. And it came to pass, when the sons of men had increased, that in those days there were born to them fair and beautiful daughters. And the angels, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them. And they said to one another, Come, let us choose for ourselves wives from the children of men, and let us beget for ourselves children." Some people believe the book of Enoch revealed a lot of secrets that have been kept and still kept secret for centuries. The book goes into a lot of detail about many of the events that were summarized in Genesis 1 to 6. It has Enoch's tours of hidden and secret places on earth and in heaven, such as Sheol, the Jewish afterlife, the abyss, the holy mountains, the 10 heavens, the gates of heaven, and the homes of the angels. The book of Enoch is so profound that it is said to record mankind's first encounter with aliens. I am not kidding. The second book of Enoch talks about Enoch's encounter with beings that were clearly not human. They are simply known as the Watchers. These beings are said to have come down from the sky and interacted with humans. While I was alone in my house, 2 men of enormous stature came before me, their faces shining like the sun, their clothes and voices beautiful. That was Enoch's description of the Watchers. Researchers like Erich von Däniken, a Swiss author of several books that make claims about extraterrestrial influences on early human culture, believe these beings described by Enoch could be extraterrestrial, aka aliens. Another interesting aspect of Enoch's description is the means of transportation the Watchers used. The Watchers are described as riding chariots of fire with wheels that spin so fast that they look like they are on fire. The sound of the chariots is described as thunder, and they move at incredible speed. These descriptions sound a lot like current accounts of UFOs. A lot of people have given accounts of seeing strange flying machines that move very fast and make noise like thunder, just as described by Enoch. These people are not Christians or strong believers, and even if they were, 60% of Christians are unaware that the Book of Enoch even exists, so the accounts are pretty trustworthy. In such, the first record of aliens visiting our planet comes from the Sumerians, and they sound exactly like what Enoch described. The Sumerians were an old people who lived in Mesopotamia. They were the first people to write down their language, and some people think they were also the first people to study the stars. Mythology among the Sumerians says that gods, who were also called alien beings, came down from heaven or the sky and taught them about many different subjects, which is similar to what was described in the Book of Watchers. That would also explain how different huge buildings built by our ancestors in different parts of the world were perfectly lined up with the stars.
So the flower of life is ancient. It's not something new. It's not something that they like I said, quote unquote, New Agers came up with. This is deep antiquity. This is the Osirian temple at Abydos. I've been there before. There's pictures of me on my account walking through this area. And what's amazing about this at Temple of Abydos, it's right behind the Assyrian, it's right behind the Abydos temple. The Assyrian temple is lower, deeper in the ground. Why? Because the deeper you go, the more ancient you go. As more sand covers up, they build more temples on top of temples to keep the site sacred. So the Abydos was built on top of most of the Assyrian, but part of it was uncovered. But the most amazing thing is this column that's there with this atomically engraved image of the flower of life in the column. And this is about 30, 40,000 years old. This isn't even like 2,000 or 3,000. No, this is deep, deep antiquity. They already knew that this was what I call the face of God. because all life emanates from this flower of life, all energy field. Inside this flower of life is a 64-grid tetrahedron. Inside that 64-grid tetrahedron, it creates something called the vector equilibrium. Inside the vector equilibrium, you can access unlimited energy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never runs out, it never expires. That's the secret to free energy, accessing that field. It's an electromagnetic wave with a specific frequency, which is one of the things that we're working on developing at First Class Space, the ability to use a special photonic receptor that only can absorb that electromagnetic energy and convert that into usable power. So those are some of the things that we're working on. The Hermetica is the key bit of information to help us understand not only how to get there, but to take a journey to inner space before we go to outer space. Because in order to make that advance, in order to jump to the next level as a civilization and as a spiritual person, you have to take a journey to inner space first. And that's what the Hermetic principles are really all about. Hermes Trismegistus, master of all arts and sciences, perfect in all crafts, ruler of the three worlds, scribe of the gods, and keeper of the book of life. 12th Hermes Trismegistus, 3 times the greatest, the first intelligencer, was regarded by the ancient Egyptians as the embodiment of the universal mind. While in all probability there's actually existed a great sage and educated by the name Hermes, it is impossible to extricate the historical man from the massive legendary accounts which attempt to identify him with the cosmic principle of thought. So the word thought is where you get though. The word thought came from though. And there's a new slang out here with the younger kids about T-H-O-T, thought. So they're taking something that's really powerful, a powerful name, a name that has real true history and everything behind it, and have turned it into a street term that means, slut and all this other kind of crazy stuff. This is how they always trick us. They always get us to use more powerful things to put negative consciousness behind it so it has no power in your life. But the true reality is though, some people say ta, but thought comes from though. That's where the word comes from. So that was, that quote came from Manly Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Amazing book. Creation according to Hermes.
The alien beings were called Anunnaki by the Sumerians. Enoch's descriptions and Sumerian text of their encounter described the aliens or the Watcher as beings from another world, huge creatures, and were called, quote, luminous beings. In such, the ancient Egyptian chronicle Kita actually says that Enoch helped build the Great Pyramids. This means that the Book of Enoch's explanation for the knowledge the Watchers shared with humans could have come from a contact or connection between them and a very advanced alien civilization, just like the Sumerians thought. These beings were also said to have taught humanity a lot of things from weaponry to astrology, enchantments, constellations, knowledge of the clouds, the signs of the earth, the signs of the sun, and the course of the moon. Basically, these Watchers were responsible for the advancement of humanity. Now you might say, what's wrong with that? One word. Hiroshima, or the present war between Israel and Palestine. Imagine you give a Ferrari to a kid, he is going to wreck it and be very hurt badly. Humanity is the kid in this scenario. People began to abuse their information, which resulted in corruption and pride. Now, while some people still believe Enoch met aliens, most biblical scholars, or anyone with a Bible, believe what Enoch met were angels. These Watchers were angels who had just one job, and it was to watch over humans. Probably why they were called the Watchers. There was to be no sort of interaction with humans whatsoever, and that is where they failed and disobeyed God. The Watchers not only interacted with humanity, but they also left heaven to come down to earth to fulfill their lust for women at the persuasion of their leader, Samyaza. They slept and married the women of earth and gave birth to children called Nephilim. These children were half angel, half human giants, a monstrosity. Nephilim were huge beings with a lot of physical power who caused a lot of damage. All they did was plunder and eat, and when there was no more food on earth for them to eat, they began attacking animal life and later humans. This could be where the Greek mythology of Cyclops came from. In fact, according to the story told in the Theogony of the Greek epic poet Hesiod, the Cyclops were the sons of Uranus, the sky god, and Gaia, the earth god, which loosely resembles the union between Watchers, representing Uranus, and the women representing Gaia.
So here we have, you see what we have here through just even through biology, you can see the shape form as we build out the seed of life all the way into a flower of life. You can see how, if you look from the left, or my left to the right, as the formation of cells and biological entity, we literally, how this energy field literally creates avatar bodies. Your body is an avatar body. Okay, there's two parts to you. You have the avatar body, and then you have your light being, which has synchronized with this avatar body, and your light being actually animates it. Without the light being, your light being inside this avatar wouldn't even move. It wouldn't even get up. It wouldn't talk. It wouldn't do anything. It just lay there, completely unanimated. You animate the light avatar. But this is the instructions here for the energy field that literally builds your avatar body, and all biological organisms that exist in the third dimension are built this way. It's a very, very simple process, very easy to understand, but very rarely taught. But this is what Thoth is talking about in terms of the process used to not only build planets, but also even include building people, as above, so below. This is where you get that from. So Thoth says he says to himself, I've got to leave something behind that people in the future, when they start to become more advanced consciously and technologically, can get their hands on and digest and begin to utilize this in their life to take the mankind back to the golden age. Because we go through these cycles, these yugas, and right now we're what I believe is the Tetra Yuga. Some people want to say that we're in the Bronze Age, but I really don't believe that. I really believe at this point here, after reading this and studying the tablets, we're more on the swing up side, going back towards the golden age again. And we here, all of us, are really the pioneers of allowing this to happen to mankind, to get back into this golden age where, for 20, 30,000 years, the world's at peace, people's lifespans are extended. This stuff is written in the Bible and many other things as well, many other ancient texts. These exact phrases are all copied from the Emerald Tablets, where man's lifespan is extended, where our level of consciousness is raised to a very high level. We are very spiritual people. We're living in full agreement with each other in terms of how we treat each other, how we love each other. Ultimate, unconditional love is the main thing that's happening on this planet, and also throughout our soul. And everywhere we go, everywhere we touch, we're basically putting out unconditional love. And we're living in synchronicity with nature. We're not destroying the planet. We're living in synchronicity with the planet. All these things talked about in there, and how to create portals and everything else. So
the Nephilim messed up Earth's natural order, and there was always conflict. The only option left was to hit the reset button, aka the Flood. The Flood was the punishment for the Nephilims. They were an abomination and needed to be wiped out. Their presence alone brought an influx of sin and depravity the world had never seen. The Flood was the option left. There is actual evidence of giant skeletons that have been found in different parts of the world. Really huge giant skulls and skeletons that were clearly not human, and just prove that at one time on Earth, there was a race of giants. Now you might say, it's all really good stories. You might be right, but what about the prophecies that came true? Aside from descriptive encounters, there were prophecies from the Book of Enoch that happened. The section known as the Book of Dream Visions talks of visions and prophecies, even from the very inception of Israel as a nation, all the way to the revolt, which happened around 63-142 BC. According to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the Book of Vision was written before the famous Genesis flood, the same flood that is recorded in every culture. So, centuries before the events happened. And in case you are wondering, Enoch also foretold the flood. Go to Noah and tell him in my name, hide thyself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is on it. And now instruct him that he may escape and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. The word deluge means severe flood or massive flood, the same flood we believe to be the Younger Dryas era that happened 14,000 years ago, when the earth was submerged in water. So, Enoch saw the visions of the flood and had to protect his great-grandson Noah and his generations. The Book of Enoch has everything to stand the test of time. But despite its solid interpretation of the events Enoch encountered, the quotation by prominent members of society at their respective timelines, and the book being used before it was banned, the Book of Enoch still remains shrouded in both mysteries and controversies. One of such controversy is why the book was banned and removed in the first place from the Bible. You don't understand. The Book of Enoch was a big deal in the past. It was read by a huge number of people in ancient times. So what was so controversial about the Book of Enoch that made the higher-ups say no to it, even to date? Only the Ethiopian and Eritrean Orthodox churches recognize it as a holy book. Well, there are two reasons. The first reason is that most of the books of Enoch were not written by Enoch himself. Yes, you heard that right. The Book of Enoch wasn't written by Enoch himself. The Book of Enoch is thought to have been written at different times and by different people, with the most recent parts possibly dating back to 300 BC. I guess so. All what I have said from the beginning of this video could be nothing more than a good bedtime story. This was ghostwriting at its finest. These writings are known as pseudepigrapha. Pseudepigrapha are ancient writings that falsely claim to be written by a biblical character. This kind of writing was very common in the ancient world, especially between 200 BCE and 200 CE2, which is when most of the writings that make up the Book of Enoch are thought to have been written, meaning the writings took place 3,000 to 4,000 years after Enoch was alive. In the case of the Book of Enoch, these writings claim that Enoch wrote them, but no actual scholar thinks that the patriarch Enoch in the Bible actually wrote the book, which means 70% of what is in the Book of Enoch could be a work of fiction, like The Lord of the Rings. The second reason for the rejection was that the Book of Enoch was riddled with inconsistency, which added to it being less authentic.
So now that I've established the fact that these are advanced beings, very sophisticated, very knowledgeable, way more advanced than us. I'm talking about a million plus years more advanced. The master architects. Stone masonry originated with both the Atlantean and the builders that came from other places. It didn't originate here on this planet. This has been talked about in many, many ancient texts. Sometimes people want to doubt some of the things that I say, but they haven't taken the time like I have to go through these texts. It's been now 20 years of research just in texts alone, and over 1,000 books later. And in the more recent last 7 years, just going through hundreds and hundreds of different tablets and scrolls and traveling around the planet and talking to locals, talking to homegrown archaeologists, getting the insights, getting the inside information, you come to realize that it was a very, very incredible past on this planet, and not only on this planet, in our solar system itself. In the beginning, Noah's, which really Noah's is another word for God, created the second Noah's. We're going to find that these Noah's are spheres. It becomes becomes a craftsman and creates the world. Noah's too creates 7 powers, and the 7 spheres around what will become the earth. The spheres have control over what will be earth. They control what we know as destiny. The 7 spheres are the moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Here is the beginning of astrology. Noah's too sets the spheres in motion, and life on earth begins. And these spheres, you've probably seen them before in the logo for Portal to Ascension. In the necklace that I normally have on, which I just took off just a little while ago, you see me wear it a lot, the flower of life. Now it starts with the seed, okay? So first you have the seed of life, and in the seed of life you have these circles. You have 6 circles that surround a 7th circle, which create these intersections. And these intersections here, every single one of those intersections is called a vesicle. And the vesicle is actually the womb of creation. So everything is coming out of this formation here. This seed is literally in you, through you, and out of you. It's all around you at all times. Every plunk unit of space-time that exists contains this formation inside of it. And if you take a cross-section of your DNA, this is the flower of life, and it holds the golden ratio. So it's even inside your DNA. Every aspect of you, every aspect of everything that exists in this entire third dimension emanates, and I mean literally emanates, from this particular shape and form. This is where life comes from, guys. There was a famous scientist that took a flask, flask from a laboratory, and he sterilized it with heat. Then he vacuumed it and sealed it. So it's a sealed, sterilized flask. Should be no way anything can get inside this flask, right? He leaves it sit for a couple days. He comes back, and then he goes ahead and looks at it under an electron microscope. Guess what happened, guys? Life forms. Microscopic life forms fully formed inside the flask. Can't see with the naked eye. Under an electron microscope, you can see these formations of different life forms that came to be out of nowhere. How can that be? Where did they come from? How do we have so many millions of different species on this planet? As many are as being extinct, you would think we'd be running out of animals. But every single year, more species actually appear. And they're everywhere. That's because life is consistently emanating directly through the vesicle pistis nonstop.
Say what you want about the Bible, but the Bible is one accurate thought-out book. From Genesis to Revelation, every word is like a hyperlink to another verse. The book of Enoch didn't have that level of accuracy. For example, from Genesis to Revelation, the one bad guy was the devil, or Satan, or Lucifer. Different names, but one being. That doesn't mean there aren't other demons. It's just that they're not named or even given as much attention as the devil was. But in the book of Enoch, God blames a demon named Azazel for everything that is wrong with the world, which highly contradicts what the Bible said about Satan being the root of all sin and evil. The book of Enoch, chapter 13, verses 5 to 6, also seems to say that the fallen angels repent of their sins. But the Bible says that Satan and his angels will go to hell and be tormented in hell forever. These differences raised quite an eyebrow, and coupled with the fact that it was written by multiple people, made it hard for scholars to really and truly know the intention behind the writings. One thing is certain about the book of Enoch. It certainly helped us understand ancient history. If you read the book of Enoch and some other ancient manuscripts based on their mythology, you start to see similarities, and it makes you wonder if these stories are not just stories, but actual events told by different people. There are connections from Enoch that leads to Greek mythology, with the belief that the Greek gods, Egyptian gods, and the gods of so many culture were fallen angels. We all know the story of Zeus and his lust for women. That is a lot of coincidence, if you ask us. The only downside of the book of Enoch is that because it was written by various people, it is open to so many interpretations and theories that can be misleading. It's important to approach this book with a discerning mind. One thing is certain, whether it's a work of fiction or not, the Book of Enoch is a very important book anyone who wants to know more about our universe should read. The book makes you understand and appreciate how connected we are as a species, be it true or false.